Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Brian. It's a bit of an oddity. I don't usually do Saturday videos like this, but I really wanted to give The Warning another shot after the strong response in the comment sections to the track Animosity that we checked out on Tuesday. And since I couldn't fit them in the regular schedule, here we are with a bonus video. There were quite a bit of comments on the Warnings video, like I just mentioned, and what I saw frequently was that Animosity is a solid track, but not one to showcase their strengths, and I saw a lot of songs being requested and thrown my way as better suggestions, one of which that kept popping up was Dust to Dust. So that's what we're going to be checking out today. My comments about the band based off of that single track Animosity was that they were a solid hard rock band, fantastic performers, but that the music was fairly iterative and expected for the genre, which is not a bad thing at all. I felt that everything I said for the most part was positive regarding the band. I was really surprised to see that apparently I had such a spicy take about it. So we're going to be diving into Dust to Dust right here. It's another live video from the same concert that we checked out last time. Once again, a lot of people tell me that they are better live, and while I typically do listen to studio versions of songs, we are once again going to look at a live version. So let's dive into Dust to Dust from The Warning and see what they're bringing to the table today. Short and sweet opening. Guitar pairing well against the bass. Very syncopated idea with the segmented attacks. Yeah, I like the harmonies. Chord-based chorus. Nice little explosion there, I like that. Punctuate and provide a bit of variety from the first time through. Very interesting. There's a transition lick that happens in the chorus. The first time it happens, the guitar does it. The second time, the bassist does. So we have the verse with a little bit more energy, with a lot more energy.
Dust to dust, our bones are rust, and we shall start again. Ciudad Mexico! Dust to dust, our bones are rust, and we shall start again. Dust to dust, our bones.
Three-way harmony. I would love to hear more of that. bit of a shift there. That little melody was Phrygian adjacent. Phrygian dominant? No, dominant still has that Middle Eastern flair to it. Yeah, I mean, this is some solid hard rock. If we, I mean, this is what I do, right? We analyze, we dig deep, we see what everything is doing and how it works together. The guitar, we have a semi-melodic flow in our verse that pairs well with the guitar, with the bass, who is kind of doing a slight alteration of pedal tone. We bounce between two notes, the first and I think the third of the scale, boom, 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 that kind of rhythm. This 3-3-2 idea, rhythmically bouncing between the first and the third. And the first is our root, right? So really laying down the chord progression here if we pay attention to just the roots. And this idea is transposed as the chord progression changes. So while it's not exactly the pedal tone writing that we had in Animosity earlier in the week, it is not too far different from it either. And like I said, the guitar pairs well with this, following the same chordal process, but adding a little bit of a more melodic flair rather than an ostinato. The drums have a really nice syncopated groove on the back half of it that provides this nice rhythmic component that makes you want to move your body with the music. It is a very groovy track. Um, the drums are still a bit on the simpler side, sitting within the realm of rock music. Everything in here is an exceptionally solid rock verse. It builds intensity, it keeps the song pushing forward, it keeps you interested, it has a nice hook, and it prepares the listener for the explosive chorus that we'll have, which is much larger, but interestingly, halftime. Kind of feels a bit more laid back, especially since we have longer held out notes in the melody, but we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, it's the build up for the payoff. It works very well, and they do an exceptional job of performing it. Once again, these performers here are exceptional on a stage in front of a crowd. I mentioned it in Animosity early in the week. I'm saying it right now. This is their their superpower, if you want to say. This is their man, what is it? The thing that they're best at, as far as the warning, as far as these performances, is the stage presence, the charisma. They absolutely get up there and they feel like they should be up there. They're belting out these sounds, they're playing with confidence. Their performance is their strong suit. That's the word I want. They look so comfortable on stage. They know that this is where they're supposed to be, and they just get up there and nail it. Happened with Animosity, happened with Dust to Dust. So yeah, the verse though leads us into the chorus, which is harmonic. The guitar switches to pure chords, the bass switches to pedal tones, and the vocal melody moves to these long held out notes. There is a section in between here. It's a dust to dust moment. It is just more of the buildup that we already had in the verse. However, I love the harmonies that come up in here. I think we only get two harmonies, the drummer and someone else. I think the first time through is the guitarist, the second time through is the bassist, but the third time we hit this, we actually ran through the repetition some extra times so that we could continue to add layers until we had all three performers singing this in harmony. And honestly, I think this is something I want to use the word should lean into, but could lean into. As far as the band goes, they have one huge superpower here, super weapon, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that rarely any other band has, and it's something that can help them stick out amongst their peers, is the fact that everybody in the band sings. Sometimes you'll have a backup singer, but usually any harmonized vocals are going to be double checked by your vocalist. in the hard rock, radio rock kind of style of music, to have not just two people who are capable on vocals, but three. You really should be leaning into these triads heavily as a way to separate yourself from the crowd. I mean, they've already reached a pretty large fandom. I don't know how much more separation they need, but it is a unique aspect that they can bring to their writing and performance that no other popular rock band currently playing music can. That's probably wrong. There's somebody who could do it, but it's something that that very few rock bands tend to do, and they absolutely could. In fact, we hear it right here, right before our final chorus. We have a three-way harmony, and I want more of that. I love it. We should they should explore that more, I think. Now, granted, this song came from their sophomore album, and they have put their third one out, so maybe the third album has more stuff like this on it. Maybe they're going to be more comfortable with this moving forward. I don't know. I've only listened to two tracks from them, but it is something I want to hear more of. It is it is a unique aspect that can set them apart. So we do the chorus, verse, chorus. We go into the bridge. And I like this bridge for the most part. It is another build up, done through intensity, whereas our verse to chorus buildup is primarily tension in the music and volume. This is intensity through rhythm and volume. We start off with the guitar and bassist playing the verse all over again, which we've already covered what they're doing there. The drummer starts out on the same verse pattern, but eventually adds in double bass kicks, giving it a double feel time. It feels intense. I think she adds in some extra tom runs on the third time through before the energy is completely dissipated. I'm not a huge fan of this. I really wish that they had used some sort of fade out, maybe had a guitar chord ringing out while we move down to this lower section, going back to the dust to dust, but quieter this time. Having that hard stop from 100 to 0 just doesn't work for me. It feels very disjointed, where the rest of the song has felt smoothly moving throughout. If there's something in the lyrics that might point towards that, I might warm up to it a little bit, but otherwise it feels like a hard stop that isn't quite warranted, isn't foreshadowed. There's nothing in the music that says it's going to happen, and after it's done, there's nothing in the music that I think supports its existence. Like I said, just having the guitar chord ring out over this, we can have everybody else stop entirely, but have a guitar chord play and then fade out. It is cliche. Lots of people do it. Lots of people do this harsh transition too. But it would allow the song to naturally dip down in volume to this section, which I think would help smooth it over a little bit. But again, maybe there's something in the lyrics that might allude to why this exists in the first place. I don't know. We'll dig into that later. I enjoyed the drumming on display here. It wasn't exceptionally complex, but it was nice enough to add that little bit of extra energy to the track while still keeping it within the realms of the style of music they're writing. They don't want to alienate their fans at all, and while I'm sure she could go for some wild polyrhythmic ideas, she knows what the song demands and plays within what the song needs in order to continue on. And I really appreciate that, the maturity that comes with that. A lot of a lot of people have their skill level and they're like, this is where I need to be at all the time. I'm always having to, justify why I practice so much, or prove how skilled I am. And they have this maturity where they understand what the song needs, not what they want to do specifically, or any need to show off, any more than what is required. It's a restrained type of composition that, like I said, I appreciate. This leads us to that three-way harmony that I enjoyed, into our final chorus, and that outro, which I'm kind of upset about. I really liked it. We had a little bit of a harmonic shift into something that I said felt Phrygian. It isn't 100% Phrygian. I was like, maybe dominant, but dominant still has more of that Phrygian sound to it. Um, it's like a rockified Phrygian. I don't know. I'll have to see if there's sheet music out there and figure out what key she's singing that melody in. I thought it was really nice to have this shift though, and we got what, 8 bars of it, and then the song was over. And I would have liked this to be expanded upon. Once again, it's a hard rock track. It was already 3 minutes into the song. Hard rock songs don't go on that much longer. They really like to sit within the realms of their style and not go outside of it. But I was a bit disappointed to hear this new idea I really liked and then for it not to be expanded on. Although this is a concept album, and it's possible the next track introduces a melody based off of that same scale, in which case maybe the transition is in the larger, or not the transition, the justification for the idea is in the larger aspect of the album rather than just this one song. It's never fair to talk about one song when it is part of a larger work. But all in all, despite having some criticisms throughout most of this, I enjoyed, much like Animosity. I'm sitting here, I'm grooving along with it. It's solid hard rock. Um, I could easily see this on the radio, and maybe it already is. I don't know. I haven't listened to a local rock station in 15 years, maybe. So maybe this is played on the local radio stations. They're definitely destined to be big. They have a sound that absolutely works in a genre that has a large fan base but not a lot of supply. And they squeezed in here into this niche. Well, it's not really a niche, but they squeezed into this audience. They saw this. They saw the demand and saw that there wasn't a lot of supply, and they just took the reins and ran with it. Absolutely a smart business move, and for them to stick with this sound is, and I'm sure it's not all financial either. They look like they're enjoying themselves. And at the end of the day, that's what art's all about. And if you can make money doing that, well, all the better for you. Um, but I think based on what y'all have told me about their history, what they've played in the past, where their skill levels are at, I'm really interested to see where they go. Maybe not by album 5, maybe not by album 8, but what about 10? What about 15? What happens when they get tired of playing hard rock and want to bring some of their skill set into it? And I think that's where they're going to grab my attention. Right now, if this came on the radio, I'd listen to it. If a friend put it on, I'd have a blast checking it out. It's not something I'm going to go seeking out for myself. I have like 150, maybe 200 albums that I want to check out in genres that are more my cup of tea. There's I mean, most of those I probably still won't even get to. There's just too much music coming out. um, a hard rock album is it's going to be very difficult to break into that unless they're doing something exceptionally novel. Um, and that's just not what the Warning is. They're very iterative, and that's a good thing. And, we've reignited a flame for a genre that was dying. We need that. There's nothing bad about me calling it iterative. But I'm probably not going to check out more of this on my own. I enjoyed my time listening to it. I'm glad I have. I look forward to further requests to check out the Warning on the channel. But again, it's not something I'm going to be seeking out myself. But I'm going to keep them on my radar. I am curious to see what happens when their backgrounds begin to mix with their current sound, and where they take maybe a classical hard rock or maybe a progressive hard rock, and where they begin to write music that inspired them to be as good on their instruments as they are. I'm going to take a second to dive into some lyrics here, and then we're going to wrap this up. And much like the music, there is a beauty in the simplicity, not any reason to overcomplicate things, especially as the opening track of a concept album. You definitely want to draw as many people in as possible, and starting with a simple introduction to your story absolutely makes sense. There is honestly not a lot going on here. Our verses tell us a little bit about our main character, and our pre-chorus tells us about not much. And the chorus, once again, tells us a little bit about our main character. Uh, Not even to be really reductive, the song is about somebody who's really interested in death. That's it. The lyrics are pretty straightforward. Verse 1 doesn't tell us anything except a little bit about our character, which works well from the concept of a concept album. It says, "Hey, come on in, walk this way. Look what I've prepared to show you. Let me show you how things can quickly unfold. In the end, everything just turns back into dust." So there's not a lot being said here, but it is setting up this showmanship, the charisma of our main character, of our protagonist, of our narrator, in the very least. It takes us into the pre-chorus, says, "Look how everything can turn back into," and it segues to dust, our bones will rust, and we shall start again. This is literally just the cycle of life. I'm not too sure about the rusting part. Someone will have to let me know if bones actually rust. I don't know, but I'm not uh, whatever that science field is that studies bones. What field is that? Anthropology? I don't know. That sounds right. But that's all it says. There's a cycle of life and death. Interestingly, though, I like the line, "and we shall start again." I look at we as more of a smaller idea. You turn to dust and then you get to start again. And that's not usually how I look at life and death, but some people may have a reincarnation concept going on. But maybe we is the more royal we of people. People die and people are born. The cycle of life and death continues. The chorus just says, "Hey, where are you going? Don't trust all that you hear." And I kind of like this because it sets up this idea like somebody brought someone to a tent and was like, "Hey, I'm really obsessed with life and death." And they like walk out the tent like, "Hey, where are you going?" I wasn't done yet. um, Verse 2 is interesting because once again it tells us a little bit about our character, in that they are interested in the truth behind death regardless of moral implications. It says, "I don't seek right or wrong, I just seek the truth." And sometimes that brings remorse or regret. But is it worth losing? Is it worth pursuing? And it's just this idea of somebody who is so infatuated with the concept of death for whatever reason that they're willing to cross moral or societal lines in order to achieve this knowledge. Um, the interlude is interesting. It is in Spanish. Translates to, "Brother, the salvation, it is something that is earned. Release your hand of resentment and wake up to a new light inside you, although your brothers try to plunge you into the darkness." And I like how this has a Judeo-Christian element to it, looking for salvation, finding it in the light, people trying to plunge you into darkness. The concept of being a good religious person so you can find, heaven, which is light, rather than the darkness, which is hell. But here, given the context of everything else, it kind of takes a different meaning, whereas the light is information, such as becoming enlightened to learn things. What this person wants to learn about, though, is death. And your brothers trying to plunge you into darkness isn't about trying to take you towards a dark path, but about stopping you from understanding things, to intellectually blinding you kind of concept. So I love how it has this religious moral component to it that is inversed given the context of everything around it. Now, I'm curious about this, though. It wasn't sung by anybody in the band. It almost sounded like a complete sample. So I'm wondering where this came from. It's also the only section of the song that has this double meaning to it, where it means one thing on the surface, but something completely different in the context of the track. And I'm curious if we'll hear more of that or hear this sort of influence in their original writing in other tracks. I saw a lot of comments about how this group are poetic geniuses, and So far, the two tracks I've seen are fairly on the surface level as far as the lyrics go. There are some figurative elements, a little bit of flowery language, but the songs are very directly and clearly stated about what they're talking about. And this one's no different. It makes sense. You know, a hard rock track is very straightforward and no frills, as people have described this band to me, and these lyrics are straightforward and no frills. They're here to tell a story, right? They're not trying to confuse you, they're not trying to be a mind screw. They're just telling you a straightforward story here. And, you know, this is one track on the album. The rest of the albums could be exceptionally confusing to dive into on a poetic level, but at least starting off this album, this track isn't. So those are my thoughts on The Warning's Dust to Dust, a very straightforward hard rock track that does a fantastic job of what it does, and they perform it with a lot of charisma and confidence that I understand why people are fans of them. I just wish they'd stop overselling them. Um, Anyways, like I said, those are my thoughts. Put your thoughts down in the comments section. Give me your perspectives, your opinions. If you have other things that you want to talk about regarding this band, let me know. Put it down there. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have a album review coming out later today at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, tomorrow morning we have our live stream. Everyone is invited. They are public now, although the only people who get to pick the songs are the patrons. Everyone else is just there for the ride and the company. Chat is open to everyone. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.